Hello. It's been ages since I've updated my blog, and I thought that it's about time. So here I am. Firstly, a thank you to the 2 or 3 hits I get every day. Although there's a high possibility that those 2 to 3 hits are mistakes and people chance upon the blog, but still I'm grateful and thank you. Now I've not prepared a full script this time round, well at least not a comprehensive one, so bear with me. I'll be talking on climate change. In our contemporary world, we are all familiar with the dramatic and drastic changes in weather patterns. In fact, 3 years ago, 2006, I was home in Hong Kong for Chinese New Year. I think it was about February. And the first time in my life, I had to wear a short sleeve shirt for Chinese New Year. Now, Chinese New Year, for those of you who are not sure, who don't know, is the time where the New Year comes. It's a welcoming of spring. And usually it's still relatively cold, as it has been for the past 3 years. But that particular year, 2006, it was different. It was different. And so obviously, you know, there's a strong change in weather patterns. Now the main proponent, if you may, for such weather changes, climate changes, would be the cause and effect of greenhouse emissions. And it has not only affected our day-to-day lives, but also economies and national interests as well. The funny thing is that many people still believe that the greenhouse effect is a mere theory, and some, even worse, they think it's a myth, it's not true. And at this point of time, I must recommend you all to spare an hour and a half with Al Gore, the movie An Inconvenient Truth. I must admit, when I first saw it on cable TV, I was adamant. I didn't feel like watching it because it was a documentary, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But I did spend an hour and a half with him, and in watching the movie, of course. And at the end of it, I felt guilty. There was a sense of guilty conscience. I felt responsible in some way or another for the way the current climate is. I mean, I use electricity, just like all of us. So, you know. Now, Hillary Clinton is currently in China, and she had talks with the Chinese Foreign Minister Yang Jieqi, and both commented on the necessity for better improving the greenhouse emission levels and the roles that the two nations have to play, primarily due to the fact that they are both the #1 and #2 greenhouse emitters, with the United States being #1. She also commented while visiting a General Electric power plant in Beijing that runs on natural gas, to highlight potential cooperation on clean energy, clean technology. She said this plan could be a model, and urged the Chinese to pursue economic growth based on clean energy and avoid the mistakes that the United States and Europe made during the industrialization of the last century. And this was quoted from Channel News Asia. I think it's the past 2 centuries, but hey, who am I to say anything? Let me now emphasize the 2 points that I'm trying to make today. First, responsibility should be borne by both the United States and Europe for the past 2 centuries, as those 200 years experienced unregulated and uncontrolled industrialization and contributed immensely to our current climate crisis. At the same time, my second point, to be fairer, if you may, that they should not be blamed for their contributions to our current climate crisis. Partially because back then, the technology did not enable us to understand the consequences of such industrialization. Excuse me. Let me now emphasize on those 2 points. In regard to the bearing of responsibility, it is undeniable that both the United States and Europe gained and profited on multiple areas throughout the past 2 centuries at the expense of their colonies, weaker states, developing states, but most importantly, Mother Nature. Due to this fact, which could be easily justified and supported with a quick Google search on such statistics, it is important for these nations, or this collectivization of nations, to properly develop the necessary technology and exporting it to the rest of the world. Now, such exports you don't really have to put a price tag on such exports. This is not to say that they don't, right now, that they're not exporting and they're not developing the technology, but there is a lack in urgency, and the need for governments to work cohesively could be seen lacking. We are all humans, and as a group or as a species, we tend to wait till too late till things become irreversible. Now, history has taught us very well, but obviously we're not learning well enough. Secondly, I need to make an equal emphasis on the issue of blame. While responsibility cannot be denied, blame or acceptance of such blame and apologies for such blame should not be at the forefront of critics and opposition. We see how certain nations impose certain restrictions on demands before offering help, aid or trade deals. Now, when I say certain nations, I hope that you are able to catch and understand which nations I'm talking about. But nonetheless, this will not do, as it slows the process down. We need to draw a clear line between the environment shared by billions and the politics that affect millions. Though such lines are almost impossible to draw, it has to be attempted at best. I'm not saying that political, ideological or religious issues are less important than the environment, but I'm asking you, or at least asking us, myself included, to think about which holds more importance to us. No doubt, aid and technology transfers done without or with little preconditions set the stage for potentially damaging international security issues. But are the ramifications and consequences of not having an Earth less important? Think about it. Thank you.